Okay guys, good morning. I just woke up about a while ago, so I'm filming this before I give this away to my friend. I bought this for him, but I'm actually pretty interested in how this was as well, so obviously I got to try this before I hand it over. So yeah, today, first ever sort of audio review, right? This is an IEM. This is the Truthear Crinacle Zero. It costs $70 ish for us people in Australia. You can buy it off Amazon or Shenzhen Audio or whatever. Um, so if you don't know what an IEM is, it stands for in-ear monitor, which is like a fancy word we use to talk about in-ears or earbuds and so on. But the main difference is that, for example, IEMs you can buy like cables, right? So cables are all detachable. Everything is sort of like modular and etc. You can custom make these at the high end level where they make it to your ear mold and so on. Usually, musicians all have to use this when they're playing at a live event because they have to be able to hear. They have to have better seal than traditional earbuds and so on. We are looking at this. This is one of the cheaper options on the market, and I think most of you guys can afford these, which is why I'm talking about this one and not those ones over there. The market has been going crazy over these. Everyone's like, oh, this is insane value for what it is, and so on. So we'll start with this little unboxing. Also one thing to note, always love some good anime waifus. All the entire like lower end IEM market, which is now dominated by the Chinese producers, all have anime girls and so on printed on their boxes. I can give you guys another example, which isn't even supposed to be. This isn't even like that budget of an option anymore, but it's, same thing, right? There's always some sort of anime girl, anime waifu, whatever, right? I dig it though. I dig it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna openly tell you guys I'm a win. Um, Little box, another little waifu thing inside. First time doing this audio review though, so I don't know what else to talk about much more. Not the biggest fan of unboxing for me. I just don't really care unless the unboxing experience is really special, and I'll talk more about it. But you get generically the IEMs, the little carrying bag with the stock cable inside it. Don't know if you saw that actually. So cable, and then inside of here is the air tips. So surprisingly, they gave you actually a lot of choices for the air tips actually. So I'm quite surprised at this. There's like multiple sizes. These three look deeper, and these three are a little bit shallower, or maybe they're the same size and I'm tripping. And you also get like a foam one. I'm not the biggest fan of the foam ones. They wear out and so on. They foam and whatever. But in general, a good unboxing. Everything's there. Now we'll go into the. Oh, dude. Okay, the IEM themselves. All right. The first thing to note is that the aesthetics on this thing is insane. Right? I cannot believe that this is the look of a $70 IEM. Right? It looks crazy. I don't know how this looks on the image. I mean, on the video. I don't know if the camera even focuses on this, but it's a little blue. It's bluish purple. If you guys go on Google and look up some images, you'll see some images make it look only blue, some images make it look only purple. In person, though, this is a bluish purple, and like, my God, this color, this design is just unreal. It's unreal. It's actually unreal. The stock cable is decently long, right? Should be long, just as long as every other like cable out there. It's really bad though, but what more can you expect to come from a $70 IEM? Heck, even my $500 IEMs came with really terrible cables. So there seems to be a thing with all IEMs that when like the stock cables they come with suck. Right, this even applies to IEMs up to $3,000. Their cables still just, some of them suck. So you can buy replacement cables. That's one benefit. And honestly, I think it's quite worth it because you can use that same cable with every other IEM you ever get if you choose to change or upgrade and so on. You can find about $20, $30 cables off of Amazon that feel so much better than like stock cable like this, right? Like you see, I can't see if you guys can see how thin that is, but you can compare like one strand of this to one strand of that, right? This costs $20, $30, right? That is not the same quality. One of my friends actually literally ripped his cable by standing up with the IM still in his head, in his ears, when he was he forgot to take them. The tips as well, so comfort, whatever. I haven't used any of the stock tips. I used my replacement ones, so I've had no issues with comfort. but I've had friends tell me when they've used this with the stock tips that they have encountered comfort issues after like an hour or two. So if that is you, you can also look into replacement ear tips, which is also a benefit because you can use those same tips on future IEMs. But that's enough of that. So inside the tech inside is what, two dynamic drivers. For those of you guys that don't know, there's many types of input drivers, which is what actually makes sound inside a sound product. With headphones, they usually only have one driver, right? Because that's just how headphones are designed. There's not a lot of headphones that use I don't even know if there are any actually. There probably is, but there's pretty much no headphones on the market that use more than one type of driver or just more than one driver in general. Now with IEMs, you have multiple different driver configurations, and IEMs have multiple drivers in them because they're smaller, it's easier to design, and so on. Like take this IEM over here, for example, that I'll try compare to later, but probably not efficient. This has 16 drivers inside, which means 16 things inside are making sounds. Right? This has 2. So both of them are called dynamic drivers. There's other types. I won't be talking about that too much. You just got to know there's planners, there's balanced armatures, there's electrostats. But dynamics are the generic one. All those gaming headsets and stuff you guys are probably used to are all dynamic drivers. So 2 dynamic drivers in here. One of them is a 10mm dynamic driver to do bass only, and the other one is a 7.8mm driver to only do everything else on the spectrum. So if you don't know what that means, humans hear between like 20,000 kilohertz. Oh no, 20,000 hertz, sorry. 20 to 20,000 hertz is sort of the human hearing range on the frequency spectrum. Bass roughly starts at about 200 hertz and below. Everything else goes upwards and so on. So they have one driver just to do 200 hertz and below, and one other driver to do everything else that's above 200 hertz, which prevents bloat and boom, because sound is all relative. If you hear a headphone, you say, oh, this is bass boosted. That's because the bass is coming out louder than the other frequencies, the other sounds at the same time, right? Sound isn't just one sound. Sound is, everything's relative. One's louder than the other, so you hear the other more. But if one sound was just missing, you don't hear things properly, right? So I don't want to go into too much detail about that. You guys can look that up if you're interested. This is like audio stuff. I am not the most well versed yet in terms of audio technical stuff, but that's all you gotta know. So there's no boom and so on. But now we'll move straight into the sound tuning, right? So mostly that's what we call about when we talk about the sound so far, tuning. Bass, mids, treble. So bass is, you guys know bass, you have drums, booms, electronic vibration, like electronic music that has like lots of vibrations, but this does surprisingly well, so I think it's good, right? Mids is okay. I think it's probably like one of the weaker points on this IEM. So mids is everything that you're normally used to hearing. So any instrument, most times any instrument, any voice, and so on, right? There's a thing by the mids and a thing that's affecting harmonics. But essentially, they sound good, they sound accurate, they sound clean and correct. They're a little bit thin, right? That's something I personally do not like the most. They sound slightly thin, but that's also because I like warmer, mushier sound and so on, right? It's a pure preference thing, but they're really good, right? They're really good. Don't get me wrong, they're not bad. They're just a little bit thin. There is a bit of a recession. You can see that on the frequency response graph, which I'll put somewhere on this screen as this video goes. The treble though, treble is also very, very good. I think treble's good, right? I think this definitely is a bit more treble boost, a bit more bass boost, a slight, like very, very slightly V-shaped signature, but not really. But that mids, that does make things really come forward and stand out. Treble is not fatiguing, surprisingly, unless you're listening to very high volumes. So overall, I think the whole thing is very, very balanced. Just a little bit thinner, which is not my personal preference. I want a little bit be warmer, but it's good, right? As for what that means to you guys who have no idea what I'm talking about in the frequency response, drums, bass, hardstyle, whatever, will sound good, right? Done. Electronic sounds, right? So if you like drum and bass or something, right? Lots of it's bass plus all the like high-pitched electronic screeching kind of noise. That screeching kind of noise might be a little bit sharper than normal, which you may or may not like, but that's like high-pitched electronic. However, vocals are good, slightly thin, but voices singing will be really good. And also percussion, string instruments, acoustics, guitars, violins, the drum hi-hats and stuff that you guys probably will never have heard using your gaming headphones, like those things will pop out at you and you'll be like, wow, unbelievable, unreal, right? Those are so good. Vocals are also good. slightly thin, but sometimes you want it to be slightly thin, sometimes you don't want it to be slightly thin. Like everything changes, right? It's always subjective. Personal preference, like I keep saying, I was like slightly warmer, which means a bit like slightly more bassy, not as like high or sharp and so on. But like that's very minor. Do not take this away as like, oh, like that's a big difference. Like it's not a big difference. It's not. This is insane. It's tuned to Harman curve, so you guys probably don't know what the Harman curve is. I can't be bothered explaining, but the short summary is Harman curve is basically how humans hear sounds when it's all put out at the same volume because of HRTF. Not Valorant HRTF where they make it look like it's surround sound. HRTF stands for head-related transfer function, which means that when sound happens in person, it doesn't just go straight from air around you into your ears that you're listening with. Sound also travels up through your body through vibrations. Your earlobe, the shape of your ear itself, means sound is going to go in and vibrate and so on. We have a specific type of hearing that fits humans, and this is tuned to fit that, which is why they're good. And so most IEMs these days are tuned like that. So now we'll go to technicalities. For gamers, this is more important. For music enthusiasts, it's still important. Right, so gamers, like in-game, sound profile and tuning really doesn't matter as much as long as you're not bass boosted to infinity and you can't hear anything. Like if bass is too boosted and you're like in Valorant, like someone's spraying in Odin, you will not hear any footsteps, anything else in the game. Right, that's what happens if you have too much bass. But this doesn't have that. So technicalities is what matters. Separation is good. Right, so it's our separation. Separation means how well can you identify different instruments or different sounds when it's all happening. How that transfers to music is like, oh, the main chorus is on. There's a bass guitar, there's an electric guitar, there's an acoustic guitar, someone singing, there's a violin, there's a this, there's that. There's all of those things. How well can you pick those things out, or are they just too muddied up? Right, it kind of also has to do with like detail and how much detail it can extract and stuff, which by the way, detail is also very good. I think for a $70 IEM, the detail on this is insane, right? It's so good for how it is. But yeah, separation is very good. You can clearly identify each other instrument. So that how that translates to in-game then is ability going off there. There's someone's voice line over there. There's some shots over there. There's this, there's that, there's that. Can you hear in between all of those? Someone's spraying a vandal. Your teammates calling comms in your voice. The killjoy ult just got put down. And there's something else happening. You're flashed and someone is running up at you. Can you hear that person running up despite all of that happening? Yes, this does it really well, right? Soundstage is the next thing, which is how wide things can sound. It's kind of hard to describe until you start trying different headphones and you're like, oh, like, why does this one sound bigger than the other? Well, that's a soundstage issue. And the soundstage on this is not very wide. With that being said, most IEMs struggle with soundstage because at the end of the day, they're kind of in your ear. The driver is super close. You can't really generate a big soundstage, which is unfortunate. Also with this, the sound staging is kind of weird to me. It doesn't sound purely like it has a 180 spectrum. So what that means is like you have your left and right and everything in front of you. Right, left, right, and you have everything around this area. It sounds more like a 10 degree to 170, so there's never anything directly on my left and right. It's kind of like slightly forward. Not really too much, nothing of significance, but that's just how I perceived it. But soundstage isn't the widest, but positional audio, and I think they call it imaging and detail, whatever, I think is really good. Which means that within that smaller soundstage, things are still placed accurately. It's like, oh, not everything is like all together. Like you can clearly identify this is more towards the left, this on the left, this on the right, this is more centered, this is slightly over here, this is over there. Like you can clearly position things within that little stage, but the stage itself isn't the biggest, right? However, in game, it's perfectly fine because most online competitive games have terrible, terrible sound engines to begin with, right? Like playing Valorant or whatever, like the sound in those suck. Sound itself, like the sound staging really doesn't matter at this point because the game engine sucks. And so there's a limit to how, like, even the best headphones will still sound average in Valorant because the game itself sucks like that. And for games like Overwatch and stuff, those have better engines, but you don't need like positional audio as much as you would playing a tactical shooter and stuff. So all in all, like, it's perfectly fine with games, I think. However, if you have bigger budgets, obviously the bigger soundstage ones will still be better and benefit from that. If you are like a single player lover, like you play God of War, you want to play some Witcher 3 or something like that, which by the way, new gen update, Witcher 3, best game of all time. If you like those games and you want that sort of immersive experience, obviously speakers are your ideal option. Then you go to headphones, but you want good headphones. I would still take these over some poor gaming headphones, but proper like IEM versus headphone. If I had both high end, I take the headphone. At the lower end though, IEMs are always better than the headphones because headphones have too many difficulties to overcome and stuff to make them good. Which I probably should have talked about at the start, but oh well. So that should be the end of the review. Now, we can make some comparisons. The only IEMs I have on me are these two over here. So this is the Truthear Audio V16 Divinity. This is the Moondrop Blessing 2 Dusk, which is also tuned by Crinacle, who also tune for these IEMs over here. Now, this is actually a terrible comparison because this costs about like $500, which is like, what, like, I don't know, 6 to 7, about 7 times more expensive than these Zeros. And this V16 Divinity over here that I use costs 2,350 Australian dollars. So this is like, what's the quick math? Let me do quick math. Like 33 to 34 times more expensive. About 33.5. So this is 33.5 times the price of these. So I don't think this is exactly a good comparison. But I definitely, like, I prefer these, right? Not just because, well, you'd expect them to sound better, but not the best. Comparison. The TLDR I can give you guys is that every IEM now, especially the cheaper ranges, is good. Because the competition is so competitive in the market, especially down there. Manufacturers are cutting their profit margins as hard as they can to stay competitive. And so you really can't go wrong buying any of these. You'll be happy with whatever one you buy. I just personally believe this to be one of the like better options out there, if not one of the best options out there for the price. Now, obviously, if you jump up in price, you have another like infinite amount of options and so on. But for that like about $70 price point, this is the one, right? This is probably the one, unless you know you have specific preferences that other ones might suit better, but you can only find that out by constantly trying things. And yeah, but like at least these things aren't the most expensive. You probably can, most of you can probably afford this, and then later on buy something else and just try everything and so on before you choose to jump a big upgrade. I would look into like Moondrop Aria or what else is there, Truthear Hexa, Dunakima and stuff like that when if you wanted a bit more next tier up. But you will be happy, right? Preferences are a thing, but just buy this, you'll be happy. Buy it. It's $70. It will destroy any gaming headset you guys own. That's, yeah, like your Logitech headset, your Razer, your HyperX Cal 2, whatever. Throw those in the bin. Buy this. Done.